Every gilded cage is built with walls of comfort. The only question is what you're paying for them.
We all move through life making choices, building what we think is our own reality. But what if the blueprints were drawn up long before we even got here? In this explainer, we are going to deconstruct the invisible architecture that shapes our world. We'll kick things off with that personal feeling of being trapped by your own success, then zoom out to look at the systems of control in the modern workplace. From there, we'll see how public consent is manufactured, dive into the wild world of digital surveillance, and finally, talk about how you can start to reclaim your own mind.
Wow, this quote right here, it just cuts right to the bone, doesn't it? It challenges our most basic ideas about freedom. Is having the ability to choose between a few pre-approved options really freedom? Or is it just, a more comfortable cage? That's the exact question we're going to be digging into. So, to make this feel real, let me tell you a story about a 42-year-old dentist. Now, on the outside, this guy has it all: a family, tons of money, respect in his community. He's the definition of success. But on the inside, he says his life is a train wreck. He picked a safe, high-paying career that, in his own words, has physically destroyed him. He's left with chronic pain and this deep, nagging feeling that he wasted his one shot at life. His story is the perfect doorway into our first big idea. And that dentist's story, it leads us right here to our first section, the Gilded Cage. This is where we explore that bizarre paradox where getting all the things society tells you to want, the money, the status, the security, can actually end up feeling like you're locked in a beautiful, fancy prison cell. Okay, so from that personal feeling of being trapped, we're going to scale up to the whole system. The sources we're looking at use a really provocative metaphor for the modern workplace: the modern plantation. Now, hold on. This isn't about saying it's the exact same thing historically. Not at all. It's about looking at the underlying logic of control that's still alive and well in the typical 9-to-5.
Just look at how control has evolved. It's pretty stark when you lay it out like this. A Roman gladiator, they were controlled by chains and whips, direct physical force. A sharecropper, they were controlled by impossible economic debt. And the modern high-status professional today? Well, they're controlled by what our sources call golden handcuffs. The salary, the bonus, the benefits are so good that the idea of leaving is just financially terrifying. The methods got way more sophisticated, but the basic idea of limiting your real freedom, it's still there.
So these are the plantation logics we're talking about. It's not just about your boss telling you when to show up. It's about systemic economic exploitation, where the company profits from the extra value your labor creates. It's about constant surveillance, performance monitors, digital tracking, all of it becoming standard. This can lead to this feeling of dehumanization, right? You're not a person, you're a human resource, a cog in the machine. And it all leads to job lock, where you're so dependent on that paycheck and those benefits that your freedom to just walk away is, pretty limited. Okay, so let's move beyond the workplace. What about the actual ideas and opinions rattling around in our heads? Our third section looks at the architects of consent, those invisible forces that are actively building the reality we think we see.
This is a huge concept. It was first spelled out way back in 1928 by a guy named Edward Bernays, who was basically the father of public relations. He called it the engineering of consent. And the core idea is that public opinion isn't something that just bubbles up from the ground naturally. Nope. It's actively and intelligently shaped by a very small group of people who know exactly how to manipulate symbols and play on our deepest desires.
And how do you pull off that kind of engineering? Well, it helps if you own the microphone. Get this. By 2011, just that's right, 6 giant corporations controlled 90% of all media in the United States. 90%. That's down from 50 companies just a few decades earlier. When the flow of information gets that centralized, you can see how shaping one big narrative gets a whole lot easier. And the tactics they use, they run the gamut, from the super covert to the stuff that's hiding in plain sight. You've got documented government programs like the FBI's COINTELPRO, which literally planted fake news stories to wreck domestic political movements. You've got evidence of CIA operations targeting journalists. But honestly, the control is usually way more subtle. Think about how the 24/7 negative news cycle jacks up our anxiety, making us way more open to authoritarian solutions. Or the quiet self-censorship, where journalists just know not to cover stories that might tick off their corporate bosses or the advertisers who pay the bills.
And all of that brings us to the most modern and, frankly, the most powerful layer of control, the digital world.
If Bernays was engineering consent with newspapers and radio, today's architects have tools that would have blown his mind. Welcome to the age of the digital overseer. The engine driving this whole new architecture is something called surveillance capitalism. A scholar named Shoshana Zuboff defined this, and it's a completely new kind of economic model. See, it's not about selling you stuff anymore. The new product is you. It's about claiming your personal experiences, your life, as free raw material, which can then be processed into data and sold to the highest bidder. So, how does it work? It's basically a three-step supply chain. First, your clicks, your likes, your searches, even where you walk, it's all claimed as raw data. Second, all that data is fabricated by powerful AI into products that can predict what you're going to do next. And finally, these prediction products are sold in these new markets for human futures. And the goal isn't just to predict your behavior anymore, it's to actually change it. The jump in power here is just staggering. Old-school propaganda was like a shotgun blast, hitting a wide audience with one message. AI-driven manipulation, that's a laser-guided missile, personalized to your exact psychological weaknesses. It learns from how you react in real time, constantly changing its tactics to be more effective, and it often works on the subconscious level. You don't even know what's happening. Okay, I know, after all of that, the picture can seem incredibly bleak. I get it, but the analysis doesn't just leave us there in despair. This final section is all about how we push back. And it's not about overthrowing some government. It's about an internal revolution. It's about breaking the spell and reclaiming your mind. Because here's the thing. The real source of control isn't just some external force. It's a belief that we've let inside our own heads. It's the belief in authority, that deeply, deeply ingrained idea that some people have the right to rule you and that you have a moral obligation to obey them. That belief right there, that's the linchpin holding this whole structure together.
This really presents us with two fundamental paths we can walk down. There's the path of the trapped, where your self-worth is all tied up in external things, money, fame, what other people think. And that leads to a life of conforming, of just constant anxious striving. Or there's the path of the liberated, where your self-worth comes from the inside, from your values, your character, your authenticity. This isn't about becoming a hermit and rejecting the world. It's about powerfully redefining success on your own terms.
So what does that actually look like in real life? Well, you can think of it as a framework for an exit strategy. It starts by consciously deconstructing all the junk you've been taught about what success is supposed to be. Then you start building resilience, financially by getting out of debt and reducing dependency, and psychologically by fighting back against that feeling of helplessness. It's not about making one giant, risky leap. It's a gradual process of experimenting, building alternatives, and slowly taking your power back.
But really, at the end of the day, it all starts right here. The first, the most important, the most powerful act of rebellion is simply awareness. It's about cultivating what one source calls a critical third eye, that ability to see the systems, to question the stories you're being sold, and to consciously, deliberately refuse to be programmed.
So, I'll leave you with this one question to chew on. In a world that asks for 1,000 tiny compromises, where we're encouraged to trade our beliefs for comfort and our integrity for convenience, if you can be bought and sold without ever even realizing it, what is the real cost of just being accepted?